students, how are you all today? This is Ashar Khan, your SST teacher from Shiv Jyoti Educational Group Kota, and today we are going to start another new chapter in geography, that is chapter number 4 of your geography book. So students, today we are going to start the chapter number 4 of your geography book, that is the first book of geography. Okay, the name of the chapter is Distribution of Oceans and Continents. So in this chapter we are going to learn about oceans and continents of our planet Earth. Okay, please open your book on page number 30, have a pencil ready in your hand because we will be underlining lots of important lines. So let us begin. Now, in your previous chapter, you have studied the interior of the Earth. In our earlier chapters of social studies geography, we have studied about different interior of the Earth. We are already familiar with the world map and the continents that cover 29% of the surface of the Earth, and the remainder is under oceanic water. That means the 29% of the surface of our planet is actually land, and the 71%, the major part of our planet Earth, is covered with water. Now, the position of the continents and the ocean bodies as we see them in the map have not been the same in the past. Okay, you all have seen our world map, right? This is what our world map looks like, a physical world map. Now, a theory suggests that this was not the way it used to be in the past. Okay, let us read further. Moreover, it is now a well-accepted fact that oceans and continents will not continue to enjoy their present positions in time to come. Now, even these positions that we see, Asia, Africa and the Americas, Antarctica and Australia, correct? It is said that maybe in the foreseeable future, these positions might change. So does that give you a question that maybe if they can change in the future, maybe they have changed it in the past as well? Now, why and how do they change their position? Even if it is true that the continents and oceans have changed and are changing their position, how you may wonder as to how scientists know this, correct? You may wonder that how do scientists came up with this idea that why the oceans are the way they are right now and what will cause them to change their position as well as the continents. Now, so let us start our next topic, that is continental drift. Now, continental drift. Observe the shape of the coastline of the Atlantic Ocean. You will be surprised by the symmetry of the coastline on either side of the ocean. No wonder many scientists thought of this possibility and similarity that two Americas, Europe and Africa, were once joined together. If you can see here, the coastline of South America, Africa, India and Antarctica and Australia, you will notice that all of their coastlines seem to be joining together like a jigsaw puzzle. That's why scientists thought that maybe once in the past they were joined. Okay. Now, from the known records of the history of science, it was Abraham Aurelius, a Dutch map maker, who first proposed such a possibility as early as 1596. Antonio Pellegrini drew a map showing the three continents together. However, it was Alfred Wegener, a German meteorologist, who put forth a comprehensive argument in the form of the continental drift theory in 1912. Underline this, that it was a German meteorologist named Alfred Wegener. Okay, now he put this theory called the continental drift theory, and in which year? In 1912. Underline this, and it was regarding the distribution of the oceans and the continents. So let us see what his theory was. According to Wegener, all the continents formed a single mass and mega oceans surrounded the same. Now, according to Wegener, all the continents, according to Wegener, what he suggested, that all the continents that we see today, the 7 continents on the Earth, were actually joined together and formed a supercontinent called Pangaea. And the massive super ocean was called Panthalassa. The mega ocean was called Panthalassa, meaning all water, and Pangaea means all earth. He argued that around 200 billion years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea began to split. Now, in his theory, he suggested that about 200 million years ago from today, the Pangaea continent, the supercontinent, began to split into parts. It first developed into two large continental masses such as Laurasia and Gondwana land. Okay, first it broke into two pieces, that is Laurasia and Gondwana land. And subsequently, Laurasia and Gondwana land continue to break into various smaller continents that exist today. And now these two supercontinents okay, continued to break until they formed the continents which we see today. So this was his theory, that all the continents which we see today were actually a part of a mega supercontinent called Pangaea, and then they further broke into pieces. All right, as you can see in the animation here. Now, a variety of the evidence was offered in support of the continental drift. Let us see some of them. Now, what are the proofs that we have which suggest our theory of continental drift? Let us see. Okay. The first one is the matching of the continents, also called the jigsaw fit. Let us read that. The shorelines of Africa and South America facing each other have a remarkable and unmistakable match. Okay, you can see in a map, any world map you can pick, you will see that the coastline of Africa and South America are perfectly a match for each other. You must have played jigsaw puzzle in your home. Correct? You can see how the two pieces of the puzzle fit together perfectly. Same happens with South America and Africa and their coastline. It may be noted that a map produced using a computer program to find the best fit for the Atlantic margin was presented by Bullard in 1964. It proved to be quite perfect, and the match was tried at 1,000 fathom line instead of the present shoreline. So this was the jigsaw theory. Okay. Next one. Rocks of same age across the ocean. Our next evidence which supports the continental drift theory. The radiometric dating method developed in the recent period have facilitated correlating the rock formation from different countries across the vast ocean. What we have done is we have taken rocks from all the different countries and have measured their age because of the recent technologies. And we have found out that the belt of ancient rocks of 2,000 million years from Brazil coast matches with that from Western Africa. Now the Brazil coast, okay, the rocks which are found at the Brazil coast match with the rocks which are found at the African continent. The earliest marine deposits along the coastline of South America and Africa are of the Jurassic age, which suggests, what do we come to know if both the rocks of the different continents share the same property, share the same age? It suggests that the ocean did not exist prior to that time, that there was no ocean between these two continents and they were connected together. Okay. Now the next theory is of tillite. It is a sedimentary rock formed out of the deposits of glaciers. Underline this, that what is tillite? It is a sedimentary rock formed out of the deposits of glacier. The Gondwana system of sediments from India is known to have its counterparts in 6 different land masses of the southern hemisphere. At the base, the system has thick tillite indicating extensive and prolonged glaciation. Counterparts of this succession are found in Africa, Falkland Island, Madagascar, Antarctica and Australia. Overall resemblance of the Gondwana type sediments clearly demonstrates that these land masses had unremarkably similar histories. The glacial tillite provides unambiguous evidence of paleoclimates and also of drifting of continents. So apart from the rocks, as well as the different types of soil have been also found on the different continents. Now next is placer deposits. The occurrence of rich placer deposits of gold in the Ghana coast and the absolute absence of source rock in the region is an amazing fact. Now in Ghana coast, okay, we have found deposits of gold. Okay, the gold bearing veins are in Brazil, and it is obvious that the gold deposits of the Ghana are derived from the Brazil plateau when the two continents lay side by side. Gold was extensively found in Ghana, Africa, but it doesn't tell about from where it originated from, the source. Okay, the source and the parent rock are absent, but in Brazil, we find a lot of gold placer mines, which suggests that maybe these two continents were connected together, and that's why similar minerals are obtained from these continents. Distribution of fossils. When identical species of plants and animals adapted to living on land or in fresh water or found on either side of the marine barrier, a problem arises regarding accounting for such distribution. A species which originated at one continent may find it difficult to go to another continent because of the vast ocean between them. But let us see the observation that lemurs occur in India, Madagascar and Africa led some to consider a contiguous landmass called Lemuria linking these three landmasses. So one particular type of species of animal called lemur was found in India, Madagascar and Africa. People suggest that maybe these three land masses were connected together and they call it Lemuria. Mesosaurus was a small reptile adapted to a shallow brackish water. The skeletons of these are found only in two localities, the Southern Cape province of South Africa and the Araba formation of Brazil. Another example can be of the Mesosaurus, okay, skeletons of which are found in South Africa as well as Brazil in South America. The two localities are presently 4,800 km apart with an ocean in between them. So we cannot think of any way that these lizards, okay, these lizard-like animal, Mesosaurus, was able to move all the way back from Africa to South America with a distance of 4,800 kilometers between them. This further proves that maybe at one present time in our history of the planet, the continental drift suggests that all the continents were linked together, and that is why we find same types of rocks, soil, placer mines and fossil fuels all over them. Our next topic, students, is forces for drifting. Now, what caused the land masses to drift, to break and go to different places? Wagner suggested that the movement responsible for the drifting of the continent was caused by pole fling force and tidal force. Underline this. There are two forces that we're going to learn about, pole fling and tidal. The pole fling force relates to the rotation of the earth. Okay, you all know that our earth is not perfectly round, it has a bulge in its center. All right? And the second force that was suggested by Wagner was the tidal force, is due to the attraction of the moon and the sun that develops tides in oceanic water. Right? We have already discussed that in our previous chapters. Wagner believed that these forces would become effective when applied over many million years. Wagner suggested that these forces, both the tidal force and the pole fling force, which will cause the continents to move away from each other and go to different places. However, most of the scholars considered these forces to be totally inadequate. But obviously there are some scholars which don't believe in this theory. Okay. Now comes the post-drift studies. Now, it is interesting to note that for continental drift, most of the evidence was collected from the continental areas in the form of distribution of flora and fauna or deposits like tillite. A World War II period added new information of geological literature, particularly the information collected from the ocean floor. Mapping provided new dimensions for the study of distributions of oceans and continents. So after the Second World War, we decided to map our ocean floor as well as the continents in a perfect manner, and we did so, and we came up with some of the ways. First one is convectional current theory, as you can see here. Now what is this? Let us read first. Arthur Holmes in 1930 discussed the possibility of convection currents operating in the mantle portion. You know what convection currents are, okay? These currents are generated due to radioactive elements causing thermal differences in the mantle portion. Holmes argued that there exists a system of such currents in the entire mantle portion. This was an attempt to provide an explanation to the issue of force, on the basis of which contemporary scientists discarded the continental drift theory. So there was according to his theory, which is the convectional current theory, he said that there are continuous currents which are moving across the mantle of our earth, okay, which causes the surface above to move, okay. Now, next is mapping of the ocean floor. Now, next comes the mapping of the ocean floor, when we decided to map our ocean floor in a good manner. Detailed research of the ocean configuration revealed that the ocean floor is not just a vast plain, but it is full of relief. Now, earlier we used to believe that the ocean floor is just a simple plain of land. But when we studied it after the Second World War, when the scientists started to study it, they found out that it is actually full of relief, that you can find different types of relief such as mountains, valleys and trenches inside it. Now, expeditions to mapping the oceanic floor in the post-World War II period provided a detailed picture of the ocean relief and indicated the existence of submerged mountain ranges as well as deep trenches. So we found out that when we studied this, there are deep trenches as well as mountain ranges present in our ocean. The Mid-Oceanic Ridges were found to be the most active in terms of volcanic eruption. We also found out that there are underwater, undersea volcanoes as well present under our ocean, which also explodes. Okay, rocks on either side of the crust of oceanic ridges and having equidistant location of the crest were found to have remarkable similarities both in terms of their constituents and their age. And now even another thing that we have noticed, that the rocks submerged under the sea which were found near Africa or South America shared the same constituents minerals, and their age was also the same, which again suggests that maybe these two continents were joined together. Now let us read more about ocean floor configuration. Okay, how do we classify our ocean and its surface? Ocean floor configuration. In this section, we shall note a few things related to the ocean floor that helps us in the understanding of the distribution of continents and ocean. Okay, the ocean floor may be segmented into three major divisions based on the depth as well as the forms of relief. We divide the ocean base, okay, into three parts. These divisions are continental margins, deep sea basins and mid-oceanic ridges. What are these three? Okay, again I'm repeating, underline this, that the divisions of our ocean floor are continental margins, deep sea basins and mid-ocean ridges. Okay, now here are the major divisions. Abyssal plain are those plain which is basically the plane of the ocean floor. Okay, then we have abyssal hill or seamounts. Then we also get rift valleys. Okay, now let us read about them. First comes the continental margins. Now let us see what continental margins are. Now continental margins form the transition between continental shores and deep sea basin. Now it basically is a transitioning area from the shore to the deep sea basin. So, okay, so the part which is transitioning between them is called the continental margin, which includes the continental shelf, continental slope, continental rise, and deep oceanic trenches. Of these, the deep oceanic trenches are the areas which are of considerable interest insofar as the distribution of ocean and continent is concerned. Next is abyssal plains. Now, these are extensive plains that lie between the continental margins and mid-oceanic ridges. The abyssal plains are the areas where the continental sediments that move beyond the margins gets deposit. Okay. Now, abyssal plain, as the name suggests, they are plains in the abyss, in the deep sea. They are the flattest and most smoothest area of the ocean floor. All right. Next comes the mid-oceanic ridges. Now, mid-oceanic ridges forms an interconnected chain of mountain system within the ocean. Underline this, that the mid-oceanic ridges form an interconnected chain of mountain system. Now, there are mountain system, ranges as well, active volcanoes inside our ocean. It is the longest mountain chain on the surface of the earth through submerged under the oceanic water. It is the longest mountain range which exists submerged under the water. Okay. It is characterized by a central rift system at the crest, a fractional plateau, and flank zone all along its length. The rift system at the crest of the zone is intensive volcanic activity. Okay, and this particular area is famous for its huge volcanic activity, about which we are going to cover now in our next topic, which is distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes. Okay, so our next topic is distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes. I hope you are all paying attention here. Now, study of the map shows the distribution in seismic activities and volcano, which is given in figure 4.2 of your book. Okay, there is a map given which suggests the different volcanoes as well as the seismic activity of the ocean. You will notice a line of dots in the central parts of the Atlantic Ocean almost parallel to the coastlines. Now, you will notice a line of dots in the central part of the Atlantic Ocean almost parallel to the coastline. You can see in your book as well on map 4.2. Okay, you will notice that there are simple line of dots which are going all the way through the Atlantic and the Pacific. Okay, they are going all the way through the Pacific and the Atlantic here. Now, it further extends into the Indian Ocean. It also moves towards into the Indian Ocean as well, which you can see here. Now, it bifurcates a little south of the Indian subcontinent with one branch moving into East Africa and to the other meeting a similar line from Myanmar to New Guinea. You will notice that these lines of dots coincide with the mid-oceanic ridge. The shaded belt showing another area of concentration coincide with the Alpine Himalayan system and the rim of the Pacific Ocean. Now, the earthquakes are deep-seated one. The map of volcanoes also shows a similar pattern. The rim of the Pacific is also called rim of fire due to the existence of active volcanoes in this area. Now, this particular area here, which you are going to see, this is called the ring of fire. Let us see why do we call it that. Let us move on to the concept of sea floor spreading. Okay. Now, as mentioned above, the post-drift studies proved considerable formation that was not available at the time Wegener put forth his concept of continental drift. Particularly the mapping of the ocean floor and paleomagnetic studies of rocks from oceanic regions revealed that following facts. Now, it was revealed that all along the mid-oceanic ridges, volcanic eruptions are common and they bring huge amounts of lava to the surface in the earth. What we found out that when we studied the Pacific Ocean, that there are huge volcanoes surrounded, almost lying parallel to the continents, okay, and they explode as well. And they bring huge amounts of lava to the surface of this area. The rocks equidistant on either side of the rocks of mid-oceanic ridges shows remarkable similarities in terms of period of formation, chemical composition and magnetic properties. Underline this, that the rocks are equidistant on either side and they show a certain similarity, a remarkable similarities in terms of period of formation, when they were formed, chemical composition, what kind of minerals are inside them, and magnetic properties. Rocks closer to the mid-oceanic ridges have normal polarity and are the youngest. The age of the rocks increases as one moves away from the crest. Now, the ocean-crossed rocks are much younger than the continental rocks. The age of rocks in the oceanic crust is nowhere more than 200 million years old. We have found that the rocks found in these areas are no more than 200 million years old. Some of the continental rock formation are as old as 3,200 million years. The sediments. Now let us talk about the sediments, means the fine particles which are found on the ocean floor. The sediments on the ocean floor are unexpectedly very thin. Scientists were expecting, if the ocean floors were as old as the continent, to have a complete sequence of sediments for a period of much longer duration. However, nowhere was the sediment column found to be older than 200 million years. The deep trenches have seated earthquake occurrence, while in the mid-oceanic ridges, the quake foci have shallow depths. So these facts and detailed analysis of the magnetic properties of the rocks on either side of the mid-oceanic ridges led Hess in 1961 to propose his hypothesis known as the seafloor spreading. So there was another scientist in 1961 called Hess, and he proposed his new theory, a new hypothesis, which was called the seafloor spreading. Let us see what he said. Hess argued that the constant eruptions at the crest of oceanic ridges causes the rupture of the oceanic crust and the new lava wedges into it. He says that the constant explosion of the constant volcanic explosion, okay, what it creates rupture in the oceanic crust, and the new lava fills that rupture. The ocean floor thus spreads, and because of this the ocean floor continues to spread. The younger age of the oceanic crust, as well as the fact that the spreading of the one ocean does not cause the shrinking of the other, made Hess think about the consumption of the oceanic crust. He further maintained that the ocean floor that gets pushed due to the volcanic eruption at the crest sinks down at the oceanic trenches and gets consumed. So it was his theory that whenever there is a mountain eruption, a volcanic eruption inside the surface of the ocean, what happens is that it causes the ground to have cracks in it, all right? But the lava which comes out of the volcano fills that rupture. Okay, this process takes place multiple times, and because of this the ocean floor spreads. Now come the theory of plate tectonics. Now, since the advent of the concept of seafloor spreading, the interest in the problem of the distribution of oceans and continents was revived. It was in 1967. Now, in 1912, Alfred Wegener put forward his theory of continental drift, and in 1967, Mackenzie and Parker and also Morgan independently collected the available ideas and came out with another concept termed plate tectonics. Underline this: a tectonic plate is a massive irregularly shaped slab of solid rock generally composed of both continental and oceanic lithosphere. Now what are plate tectonics? These are massive plates or land areas on which our continents rest. Plates move horizontally over the asthenosphere as rigid units. Asthenosphere is the top part of our crust, okay, don't forget that. The lithosphere includes the crust and the top mantle with its thickness range varying between 5 to 100 kilometers in the oceanic parts and about 200 kilometers in the continental areas. Okay, these were the major plates. They are African plate, Antarctic plate, Australian plate, Eurasian, North American, South American and Pacific plate. We are going to learn about them in a minute. First, let us see them. Now, on this map, you can clearly see the different types of oceanic tectonic plates. Now, a plate may be referred to as the continental plate or oceanic plate depending on which of the two occupy a larger portion of the plate. Now, two kinds of plates are there, continental and oceanic. It depends on which of the two, either ocean or continents, occupy a large portion of that plate. For example, look at African plate. Okay, you can see a continent here, landmass, and you can see water which is surrounded here. Which of the two is more comparable in size? Right? The African plate is larger, the landmass is larger, and that is why it is called a continental plate. Okay, but if we look at Pacific plate, look here, you will find that the landmass is almost none here. That is why it is an oceanic plate. Now, Pacific plate is largely an oceanic plate, where the Eurasian plate may be called a continental plate. I hope you understood this. The theory of plate tectonics proposes that the Earth's lithosphere is divided into 7 major and some minor plates. Okay, young fold mountain ridges, trenches or folds surround these major plates, and the major plates are as follows. Try to find these as I say their names. First, Antarctica and the surrounding oceanic plate. Antarctica plate you will find at the South Pole. Then we have North American with Western Atlantic floor separated from the South American plate along the Caribbean islands. Okay, then we have the North American plates here, South American here. Then we have the Pacific plate right here. Then we have Indo-Australia and New Zealand plate. Okay, India, Australia, and New Zealand plate you will find here. Okay. Then we have Africa with the Eastern Atlantic floor plate, and Eurasia with the adjacent oceanic plate. And now there are some important minor plates as well. Try to find them. Cocos plate, you will find it between Central America and Pacific plate. Nazca plate between South America and Pacific plate. Arabian plate, mostly the Saudi Arab landmass, and Philippine plate between the Asiatic and Pacific plates. So these are some of the major and minor plates of our tectonic Earth. Okay, the lithosphere, which we have divided into tectonic plates. Some are major and some are minor. We also have Caroline plate between the Philippine and the Indian state, and Fuji plate, the northeast of Australia. These plates have been constantly moving over the globe throughout the history of the Earth. Okay, now we have found out that these plates were always moving. It is not the continent that moves as believed by Wagner. Continents are part of a plate, and what moves is the plate. Now another thing we are learning, which Wagner said, that it is just not the continents which are moving, it is the entire plate on which they are resting. Okay, the continents don't move, the plate does. When the plate moves, the continent goes along with it. Okay. Without exception, they have moved in the geological past and shall continue to move in the future as well. Wagner had thought of all the continents to have initially existed as a supercontinent in the form of Pangaea. We established that this was Wagner's theory, that he thought that all the plates were connected together and formed Pangaea, the supercontinent. However, later discovery students have revealed that the continental masses resting on the plates have been wandering all through the geological period, and Pangaea was the result of converging of different continental masses that were part of one or the other plate. So they are saying now, okay, recent studies have revealed that maybe the Pangaea was not the starting point of our planet. Maybe even before Pangaea, the continents were separate, and then they formed Pangaea, and then they again broke together. Okay. Scientists using the paleomagnetic data have determined the position held by each of the present continental landmass in different geological periods. Position of the Indian subcontinent, mostly Peninsula India, is traced with the help of the rocks analyzed from the Nagpur area. Now we're going to learn about plate boundaries. Okay, as you can see, both the plates, all the plates interact with each other. Correct. For example, North American plate and Eurasian plate have a fissure between them. So what divides them? Let us see that. Okay, it is said that there are three types of plate boundaries. Okay, let us see the plate boundaries. The first one is divergent boundaries, as you can see here. New crust is generated as the plates pull away from each other. In divergent boundary, students, you will see that the plates move away from each other. Okay, the sites where the plates move away from each other are called spreading sites. Underline these lines. The best known example is the Mid-Atlantic range. At this, the American plate are separated from the Eurasian and African plate. Next one is convergent plate boundary. Very simple to understand. In divergent boundaries, plates are moving away from each other. In convergent boundary, they are moving towards each other. Okay. When the crust is destroyed as one plate dived out under another, the location where sinking of a plate occurs is called a subduction zone. Underline this, that the point where these two will meet, okay, and one plate will dominate the other, that is called the subduction zone. There are three ways in which convergence can occur. These are between an oceanic and continental plate, between two oceanic plates, and between two continental plates. Now our third one is transform fold plate boundary, where the crust is neither produced nor destroyed as the plates slide horizontally past each other. Okay. Now the crust here is neither produced nor is destroyed because the plates are not colliding, they are just passing by each other. Okay. Transform folds are the planes of separation generally perpendicular to the mid-oceanic ridges. As the eruptions do not take all along the entire crest at the same time, there is a differential movement of the portion of the plate away from the axis of the Earth. Also, the rotation of the Earth has its effect on the separated blocks of the plate tectonics. Okay, this kind of movement is basically caused by the movement of our Earth. Now, rates of plate movement, at what rate are they moving? What's their speed? The strips of normal and reverse magnetic field that parallel the mid-oceanic ridges help scientists determine the rate of plate movement. These rates vary considerably. The Arctic ridge has the slowest rate, less than 2.5 centimeter per year. So you can see that the Arctic ridge, okay, which is moving at the rate of 2.5 centimeter per year, and the East Pacific rise near Easter Island in the South Pacific, about 3,400 kilometers west of Chile, has the fastest rate, that is more than 15 centimeter per year. Now, force of the plate movement. At that time that Wagner proposed his theory of continental drift, most scientists believed that the Earth was a solid, motionless body. However, concept of sea floor spreading and the unified theory of plate tectonics have have emphasized that both the surface of the earth and the interior are not static and motionless but are dynamic. Earlier people used to believe that the earth is static and doesn't move and the oceans have only one place, okay? But recent studies of all what we have learned in this chapter suggest that no, the continents and the plates continue to move, okay? The fact that the plate moved is now a well accepted fact. The mobile rock beneath the rigid plates is believed to be moving in a circular manner. The heated material rises to the surface, spreads and begin to cool and then sink back into deeper depths. This cycle is repeated over and over to generate what scientists call a convectional cell or convectional flow. Heat within the earth comes from two main sources, that is radioactive decay and residual heat. Arthur Holmes first considered the idea in the 1930s, which later influenced Harry Hess thinking about sea flow spreading. The slow movement of hot, softened mantle that lies below the rigid plate is the driving force behind the plate movement. So our plate movements are continuously on the move, okay? It may be caused by either radioactive decay or residual heat. Now comes our next topic, that is movement of the ocean plate. Let us study that. Now let us study about the movement of the Indian plate. The Indian plate includes Peninsular India and the Australian continental portion, okay? Now the Indian plate, it consists of the lower India, the triangle part which you see, okay? And also the Australian portion. Now the subduction zone along the Himalayan forms the northern plate boundaries in the form of continent convergence. Now what happens is basically, okay, in our earlier time there was no peninsula part here, okay? It started from here and slowly drifted all the way up and joined at the base of the Eurasian plate, okay? When these two collided, let us see what happened. Now in the east it extends through Rakhine mountains of Myanmar towards the island or along the Java Trench. The eastern margin is a spreading site lying to the east of Australia in the form of an oceanic ridge in southwest Pacific. The western margin follows Kirthar mountains of Pakistan. It further extends along the Makrana coast and joins the spreading site from the Red Sea Rift southeastward along the Chagos archipelago. The boundary between India and the Antarctic plate is also marked by oceanic ridge, which is a divergent boundary running in roughly west to east direction and merging into the spreading side, which is a little south of New Zealand. Now India was a large island situated at the Australian coast in a vast ocean. Now here was early India situated at a vast coast, okay? The Tethys Sea. Now the sea here which was present, okay, it was called the Tethys Sea, separated it from the Asian continent till about 225 million years ago. Now let us see. Okay, now slowly what happened, that the early India or the peninsular India started drifting towards the Eurasian plate. India collided with Asia about 40 to 50 million years ago, causing rapid uplift of the Himalaya. Now the part of India, okay, it collided with the Eurasian plate and gave rise to the Himalayas, and the Tethys Sea which was present here was removed, okay. Now, it also shows the position of the Indian subcontinent in the Eurasian plate. About 140 million years ago, before the present, the subcontinent was located at a south of 50 degrees south latitude. As you can see, the Tethys Sea, it was removed, okay, and when these two plates collides, okay, it gave rise to formation of mountains which rose above the plain and were called the Himalayan mountains, okay. Let us see, which basically resulted in the India we see today. So you see how our peninsula plate, Peninsula India, joined the Eurasian plate, okay, and formed the Himalayan mountains. The two major plates were separated by the Tethys Sea, and the Tibetan bloc was closer to the Asiatic landmass. During the movement of the Indian plain toward the Eurasian plain, a major event that occurred was the outpouring of lava and the formation of the Deccan Traps. This started somewhere around 60 million years ago and continued for a long period of time. Note that the subcontinent was still close to the equator. You all know that our subcontinent, the South India, is still close to the equator. From 40 million years ago and thereafter, the event of formation of the Himalaya took place. Scientists believe that the process is still continuing and the height of Himalayas is rising even to this date. We all know this, that the process of these two plates colliding is still continuing, okay. The peninsular plate is still pushing into the Eurasian plate, and which is giving rise, a continuous rise in the height of the Himalayas, okay. So student, that was it for the chapter. That is chapter number 4 of your geography book. Do watch the video again and take care. Thank you.